Yeah. Enhancing the workspace with custom builders. Okay, let's dive in. You might already know about the schematics that gives you the ability to generate language agnostic code and set up your project in seconds. But do you know about customizing the behavior of the command line interface itself? Adding new features like deploying your code with one command and using modern tools like Cypress or Jest. Custom builders are available for you to take control of the entire workspace. So first, let me introduce myself. I'm Benjamin Cabanes. I'm based in Toronto, and I'm a senior software engineer for Narwhal. You already know Narwhal, has been presented by Jason. But I'm also part of the NX DevTool teams, which is an open source project built by Narwhal that helps developers to work in a monorepo style development. But enough about me, let's talk about custom builders. So this talk is in 3 parts. First, we're going to see what is a custom builder. Now, after that, we are going to see how to implement a custom builder, and then the use cases. But first, let's take a step back. Angular CLI has 3 types of command. The first one is the schematics command. ng-new, ng-generate, ng-update, and ng-add. They run tasks that will generate and modify your code. We won't go into them, but they help you generate a new component and project extra. Second, the internal commands. They don't do and then do not affect your code in any way. They are like ng-help, ng-dog. We won't go deep into them, but as example, the help command will show you the CLI help. And the dog command will redirect you to the official Angular documentation. And lastly, the third part, the task command. This is our focus today. They will run process on your code. It means they take your code as input and do something with it as output without modifying it. The commands build, test, and lint are a good example. At its core, the Angular CLI has a task running system. Now, to be able to run a task properly and actually be useful, it needs to have information on what the task is, its target, and how to behave accordingly. To answer those questions, we first need to have information on the location where those actions are executed, the context. Entering the notion of workspace. A workspace is basically where your code lives, your root folder. And it contains a specific file, the angular.json file. This file holds a representation of what is happening with your code, your projects. Do you have application or libraries? The angular.json file holds what tasks are available for each of your projects with their configuration and options necessary for them to be run properly. The workspace is the context for your task to be run with. Once you have the information about your task to run, you need to be able to actually run the task. The Angular CLI has a task running system called the Architect API. It resolves your project information, available tasks, their options, and configuration from the angular.json file. Then the Architect API is able to schedule and coordinate tasks on your code depending on the command you run via the CLI. If I run ng-build, the Architect API is responsible to run the build task on the project as specified with the options I wanted. Now, all this to say that a builder is the implementation of a specific task. OK, so we have the global vision now. Let's get deeper. Technically, you are already using a multiple builder when you are developing your application. The Angular CLI is coming with default builders, and you can see those if we take a look at the angular.json file. This angular.json file represents a freshly generated workspace using the command ng-new task. You can see all the information available for this Angular workspace. We have the generic information like the current version and a list of available projects. For each project, we have a bunch of properties, but one specifically should ring a bell with what we just seen, the architect property. We can see the architect property under the Thursdays project. Inside this architect property is listed all the available tasks that we can run for the current project. Those properties are called targets. And for each of those targets, we notice that they all follow the same pattern. Inside this, for each of those targets, we have 3 properties. The builder, which is the path for the package library that contains your builder and the column name of the builder. Then you have the options that allows you to customize the behavior of the current builder, and then the configuration that allows you to override the options that you pass for a specific environment. Now, if we link this information with our day-to-day use of the CLI, we have the ng-build Thursdays -- configuration equal production. We'll run the architect target name build for the Thursdays project name. And the build task will be run with the option declared in the workspace file, your angular.json file, and we want to use the production configuration. Because this command is part of the default set of targets officially available for the Angular CLI, it is actually a shortcut for a more generic command. That generic command is ng-run Thursdays :build :production, which is your project name the architect target, or your task that you want to execute for that specific project, and an optional configuration that will override the options that are specified inside the angular.json file. So far, we are still on the user side. So let's go at the other end and see what's going on inside the builder by creating our own builder. But we don't want to show an hello world because this is kind of lame. Let's have a real situation. Our website feels slow, and we know why. We have a lot of images, and they are too heavy images. We need to somehow optimize them, compress them, so the website doesn't feel like so slowly. To solve this problem, we need to implement a way to optimize these images and to compress them. So usually, this process is done via a custom script that uses a kind of image processing library. So we take the original image, we compress it, and we have the optimized for the web. And that pipeline is usually done with a gulp or grunt task or bash or npm scripts. But since the talk is about custom builder, let's implement a solution by using a custom builder. So to recap, our custom builder will handle the compression of the image for our current project. Let's start by creating some files. First, we are inside the root of the project. For the Thursdays workspace, I created a bunch of folders, tools, builders, and the name of my custom builder. I create the package.json, which handles the dependencies that I will need and that my builder will need. For example, our image processing library. Then we have the builder.json file that declares all the available builder for that specific package. One package can have multiple builders. Then we have the schema.json file that declares a list of all of the available options for our builder. Next, we have the builder implementation. That will be obviously the implementation for our builder. And we can have the tsconfig file because we're using TypeScript, and also some tests with some integration tests could be useful. Now let's write the implementation of our builder. So we have seen previously that a builder is the implementation of a task. Programmatically, a task is described as a function. A builder is a function accepting arguments and returning something that describes the success or not of the operation. Let's start by creating our supported option by creating our option interface for the builder. We want this builder to be as minimal as possible, so we only give the user the ability to change two options. This is just an example. The compression rate here and the assets path. Next, we create the actual implementation. So for this, the Angular CLI provides us with helper functions. We use the helper function createBuilder from the Angular Dev Kit package and set it as our default export. The function accepts another function, which will be our builder implementation. And we need to provide the available option that we just created before. The builder implementation accepts two arguments, the builder options and the CLI context. Options received by the builder when running a target are first read from the Angular.json file, then overridden by the configuration, then overridden by the command line flag. The context is our communication link with the CLI, and we can send messages and trigger internal action to the CLI from our builder. That means that we can set sequential or watch mode, and we can trigger other builders from our builder. Then we can return a promise, an observable, or directly the builder output object. So here is a minimal pseudo implementation of a custom builder for the image optimization process. We are essentially parcouring all the test paths and compressing the images. Once done, we resolve the promise. If an error occurred, we let the user know by using the logger, context.logger.info, and we resolve immediately with a fail status and an error message. This is a minimal implementation, but complex or not, all builders will have the same structure. Declaring the options, calling the createBuilder function, then implementing the builder's logic, finally resolving by passing the builder's return object. At normal, we created a few builders for NX. Even if the implementation looks more compressed, it is still more or less the same. Now we need to tell the CLI how to use the builder. First, let's define our JSON, schema.json file that will be used by the architect API to validate the arguments passed by the user and set the default values if needed. So here we have only the compression and the assets path, and we define description for them, the type, and the default values. Next, we need to register our builder to the builders.json, which will be the file that the architect will look at to see all the builders available for that specific package. As I mentioned before, the builders.json here is registering only one builder, but you can have as many as you want. We give them three properties: the implementation, the schema, and the description. Next, we add a line in our package.json file with the property builders and pointing to the builders.json file. That thing tells the Angular CLI that our package is a custom builder. The last step is the configuration of the Angular.json file to work with our custom builder. The step is usually done automatically via Schematics. So here we set name for the custom builder with the optimized images, and we just modify one option for the compression rate of the images. The builder has the path for our custom builder, and the name, the path colon the name. Then we can use our builder with the command ng-run testdesk :optimize-images. Okay. So now that we know what is a custom builder and we know how to implement one, let's see some use cases and why would you create a builder. So the Angular CLI is coming with Protector as default end-to-end test solution and Karma as unit test runner. But if we want to use Cypress instead on Jest, what do? We can create a custom builder. Creating a builder is a good candidate to allow us to use new tools for Workspace, and not just Jest or Cypress, but also ESLint, Rollup, Bazel, and maybe the Clojure compiler too. And this is not just me, this is a tweet from Minko Gachev. And you can create a custom builder that makes your React and Angular application working alongside another, or building your backend application the same way you build your front-end app. This is the ultimate path toward monorepo, and at Narwhal we love custom builder, and we got you covered. We added custom builder and especially to enhance your developer experience and get more of your workspace, like building React and Angular application in the same place, truly in line with the monorepo mindset. But also we have some ready-to-use implementation for Jest, web components, Bazel, React.js, Next.js, everything. You might also need a custom builder to personalize the build steps of our application or library. The Angular CLI default build steps can be enough, but sometimes we are in the middle of an upgrade and we need to tweak a little bit our Webpack configuration. Or we just need to add that extra step to the process. By creating a custom builder, we now have the power to manipulate our build process to our own implementation. And as an example, there is already a builder available from the Angular team that gives us the ability to write a custom Webpack configuration. So you write your custom Webpack configuration file, and then you use that custom builder from the Angular team to use it. Custom builders are easily shared. Our builder is just an NPM package and can be shared like any libraries. Add it to the project dependencies, and it is ready to use. We don't need to learn anything. Developers already using the CLI will know how to use it, and their configuration are usually done automatically by Schematics. Now, having a common ground to communicate is really important. The Angular CLI is providing a set of conventions and gives us an API to work with. Every builder will have the same declaration files and structure, which will help us save time by already knowing where to find the information we seek. Furthermore, it gives us helper functions to simplify the code and let us focus only on the builder's implementation. We can see all the options available at a glance and figure out quickly how to configure the builder without looking at its implementation. The schema.json file is like the public API of our custom builders. We also have a system of type validation for free, because we are using JSON schema to describe the type and structure of the available options. The architect API will be able to validate the user inputs for us before any run. Erroring is something is not respecting that schema before running the custom builder. Custom builder also help for monorepo. When we are in a monorepo workspace with multiple teams and many projects, the last thing that we want is having each team developing its own tooling and custom build processes. We may also want to be able to deploy each project separately. Custom builders allow us to abstract this and normalize the tooling and build processes by using the same builder with different options per project. Okay, we have covered a lot of stuff. Let's just have some takeaways. Angular CLI Stack's running system is called Architect. A builder is the implementation of a task. It is not as complicated as you might thought it was. Once you know the structure, you know where to look and understand what the builder does. Always the same thing, declaring the option, create builder function, and then returning the builder's object. Easily shareable, your best ally for monorepo. It enhances and simplifies the developer experience. You can use modern tools inside your workspace. And why would you create a custom builder? For the introspection and discoverability, for not reinventing the wheel when you want to have a custom process in your workspace, and only focusing on the implementation. Thank you.